TEA disclaimer. This presentation provides information based on the work of Garland and Harlandale ISDs. LEAs may use the information gained during this presentation to, excuse me, I'm sorry here, guys, as they see fit to build their own PFE program based on the needs of their school community. The purpose of the presentation is to provide strategies for LEAs to consider. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the presentation belong solely to the presenters and not necessarily to the Texas Education Agency. TEA does not endorse any of the resources and/or products that are referenced in the presentation. If you guys have any questions about the expo or about PFE in general, please reach out to our team. Here's our contact information. We are here to help you. Just reach out to us and we'll be happy to guide you in whatever it is that you are trying to do to help continue to serve parents and families in your district. And with that, I would like to go ahead and welcome our two speakers today from Garland ISD. The first one is Jonathan Armstrong, who's the Family Engagement Coordinator, and he will also be assisted today in the presentation by Dr. Ramona Aguilar, who is the Director of Family and Community Engagement. And so without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Jonathan Armstrong. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Matthew. I hope you're seeing the slide deck now. All right.
Yes, sir.
So here we are in Garland ISD. It's about 45 degrees outside. It's a beautiful morning, and I hope everyone else is having a good day wherever you are. If you're interested, you can find us on Twitter and on Facebook at GISD Engagement. And there's the actual URL for the Facebook page. But again, I'm Jonathan Armstrong, Coordinator for Family and Community Engagement here in Garland. And these are my daughters, Olivia and Maite. And I want you to know that despite the masters, despite the continuing ed, all the things that we do to improve ourselves for our job, it frequently comes down to what do I want from me as a dad and what do I want from my daughters, right? And so that's really the driving question for a lot of the work we do. What's best for our families, what's best for our kids. And it goes back to the customer service piece, not just the front desk, but all the customer service that we do. I'm tying into what Matthew said earlier, because the golden rule, right, for family engagement.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I know that we have so much on our plate to do, and sometimes carving out a couple of hours for our own development is really difficult. So we just appreciate you taking the time. My name is Ramona Aguilar, and I'm Director of Family and Community Engagement. I've been in education for over 20 years. I taught in Lubbock ISD and moved over here when my daughter was 2 and served as assistant principal in Garland ISD, a principal at 2 campuses, and also a program coordinator for bilingual ESL and migrant at Region 10. But I have a picture up there of my daughter, because just like what Jonathan said, it's all about what do we want for our kids and what do I need as a parent to really be able to support her hopes and dreams. So I raised my daughter in red and black, and I know there's some Red Raiders that are really excited about the big win over Baylor, and I'm sorry for the person that checked in from Waco, but we're excited about it. But I'm happy to say that she actually wants to study engineering, aerospace engineering specifically. And so she decided that she wanted to go to Aggieland. So I'm probably hearing a lot of virtual whoops. Feel free to type it in the chat. I know y'all get excited about that. I'm a very, very proud Aggie mom, and we're taking her back to school on Saturday. So that's just a little bit about me. Next slide, Jonathan. So some of you have already started with the whoop and the gig 'em, and hopefully the guns up or some Raider power in the chat, but just tell us about yourself. Some of you have already checked in the chat and kind of told us where you're from. That's why I knew there was somebody from Waco in the chat. But why did you join us today? Like, what are you hoping to learn? I see that hook 'em, okay. All of our bosses graduated from UT, so we do have to support UT. So you might see occasional orange in our stuff. We've got some Boomer Sooners. Anybody want to share why you joined us today? Why'd you take time to be here today?
Get more parents involved
Resources
with
and
activities.
tips. Resources and tips. Takeaways, right? We hope that we can give you some resources and tips that you can take away and start implementing. Insight on what parents and families need. That's really important. We always have to stay in tune and in touch with what our families need. How can we partnership to make our students successful? There's so many changes and stress. Thank you for bringing that up. We are going to talk about that, and that's part of the reason why we even created this. So keep them coming. We'll keep reading them in the chat and we'll respond as we go. But Jonathan, can you go to the next slide, please? These are little things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to give you just a basic overview of Garland ISD and specifically family engagement team and what it's comprised of. We're also going to be talking about how we can, especially in a virtual world, influence family efficacy. So we're going to talk a little bit about our Facebook Live via Zoom initiatives. We're also going to talk about how can we influence family efficacy in the area of parent leadership? How can we develop and build leaders? And then we're going to also talk about just our social media outreach in general and how we use social media to leverage and try to impact family efficacy. So the Garland ISD Family and Community Engagement Department was actually created in 2015. And so we've been doing this work, Jonathan and I, and our other team members, but we're just really excited to share the things that we've been doing. We've done different programs throughout the development of our program, but we want to talk specifically about our virtual and the things that we're doing this year. So we're happy to share other past initiatives, but this year we're talking just about what we're doing this year. Here's a little bit overview of our demographics of our school district. All of this is on our website if you want to take a look at garlandisd.net. But the most important thing I want to share with you is about the context of our district. We are actually comprised of 3 cities. So it's Garland, City of Garland, City of Rowlett, and the City of Saxe. So anything that we develop and that we implement, we really have to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our 3 unique city areas. In addition, we are a school district of choice. So that being said, we have 3 cities. Any of our students and families can select to go to any of the schools within those 3 cities. So for example, my daughter, I'm a proud Garland ISD mom. She went to school here and we live in Rowlett. That's a city that she resides at, but she went to elementary in Rowlett. She went to middle school in Garland, and then she went to high school in Saxe. So when she graduated, a product of Garland ISD, she actually was able to attend a school in each of the Tri-Cities. That's something very, very unique about our school district and our context. And it also impacts our family engagement outreach. As a campus principal, I've been a principal at 2 campuses in Garland ISD. One of them is more of a neighborhood school. We didn't have any buses. So family engagement looks a little bit different compared to the other campus where I had a lot of students that rode buses and were from different cities. So we also have to assist campuses with their outreach in those areas as well. And last year, we became an open enrollment district. So we've always been able to have our employees, students come to the district, but last year we became an open enrollment district. And what that means is after all of our students are placed and they go through the choice process, then we open it up for anyone outside of the Metroplex area that wants to come to Garland ISD. And there is a process and a rubric and an application for them to fill out to be considered. Next slide. So this is just a breakdown of our demographics. We reflect the state. Also, just want to note that all of our campuses are Title I campuses, except for 3 of our elementary schools this year. So that's just a little bit about our context and our makeup. This is our amazing team. I could not do any of the things that we get accomplished on a day-to-day basis without them. You're going to hear from myself and from Jonathan. Lakeisha Culpepper and Javier Solis are an amazing addition to our team. They are our liaisons, and they interface a lot with our community. So we are very, very visible in our Garland ISD community at city events, at organization events, etc. And we interface with them to connect our community to our campuses. We also have our case managers that work specifically with our McKinney-Vento and foster care families to provide services to our kiddos, but also to our families to assist them as needed. And then we have our amazing paraprofessional staff that assist us with all of our efforts.
So one of the things that we always start with is like, why do we do this? And when we go out to campuses and we work with staff development and teachers doing staff development, we ask them, why do you do this, right? We know that students with engaged families reap all the benefits listed here. Research tells us, right? If you're familiar with the work of Professor Heckman, I think he's at the University of Chicago School of Economics, but his research on the non-cognitive skills, right? He has shown how children that have the ability to persist, self-regulate, they do better, right? Academically, but the foundation is the social emotional skills. And, SEL is really big the last few years in public education, but it started before they ever got to our schools, right? And so what happens is we have families that have invested so much in their children, and then they put their children into a system that may or may not be designed for them, for the parent, right? For the family. And we have family engagement at all different levels. And so we have 70-ish schools. And so our family engagement goes like this: as we get new teachers, new administrators, new families, it is always a work in progress. But we work on engagement all year long, day after day, because we know that family engagement translates into higher levels of achievement. And without families, schools are alone, right? With families, schools have partners. So the question now for y'all is, what is your why, right? Do me a favor and just drop your why. Why do you do this work? Why are you an engagement coordinator, a family engagement specialist, a teacher, an administrator in education? Why do you do this work? I noticed in the comments, people talked about change, stress, fear. A lot of people got out of education in the last couple of years, but you're still here. So tell us why. To eliminate barriers, to give back to future generations, love for families, love for people, advocate. We're going to talk about advocate. So that parents have opportunities that our parents didn't have. Now they're scrolling so fast, I can't barely keep up. Rewarding to help others, to build community. Those are great answers. Keep them coming, and I'm going to move on to the next slide. So the work of Karen Mapp, I hope you're familiar with her. If you're not, there's a great book, Powerful Partnerships, and it's a great book for a book study. It's highly accessible, and your teachers can work through it, and there's links to short videos throughout the book. And so the important thing I want to talk about here is her research has shown that campuses with high levels of engagement have this in common. She finds these 4 core beliefs at these campuses. And it's that we recognize that parents want what's best for their children, that they have these hopes and dreams for their children. And that the campus recognizes that parents have the capacity to support learning. And I've heard teachers tell me, well, my parents don't know X, Y, and Z, right? But we believe that with scaffolding, right? That with a relationship that has trust at the core, and that with the scaffolding, that parents can learn to support that thing, right? I may never help my child with algebra, right? I passed it, I forgot it, right? I don't want to relearn it right now, but I can monitor homework and I can communicate with the teacher when I see her struggling. And so we can scaffold parents to support their children at any level. The core belief that parents and staff are equal partners. We actually worked with a campus, a middle school campus, and we asked the teachers to share their why with families. And there was a mom that said, I used to think that teachers were up here and that we're down here as parents. But now I see that you're talking about us being like this, right? And she actually said, I've never had a teacher share why they teach with me before. She said, I don't really know why you called me to this meeting, but I'm in. Just tell me what you want me to do, right? So communicating these beliefs to our families is kind of the first step in welcoming them sometimes. And we have to believe that the responsibility for building that partnership and for reaching out to families starts with us, right? We've got the system, we've got the hard to navigate system sometimes. And sometimes it's just the fear of entering a new system that families face, but it's our job to build that bridge to the family, to the community. And again, Beyond the Bake Sale was an earlier book that this came from, but it's repeated in Powerful Partnerships. So another question that we talk about with staff is, why do parents get involved? Because we're saying we want you to be here to the parents, right? But we're not addressing some of the underlying circumstances or conditions. So the work of Catherine Hoover Dempsey, and she was at University of Vanderbilt, I believe, but it's that parents see themselves in a role, and that role has to include advocate, homework monitor, those different things, right? They have their own sense of efficacy. Some families don't feel that they're effective, right? And we're talking about building efficacy today, but some families hang back because they're like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm not good at it. I've tried and it failed, right? I tried to monitor homework. It just ended up in an argument. I'm not good at this. It's the teacher's job from now on. We have parents that have expressed these different beliefs to us as we talk about, what's your role and are you good at it? But if we as staff want to influence parents' sense of their role and build them and scaffold them up where they feel like they have a sense of agency and efficacy, a lot depends on our invitingness. How welcoming are we? So one of the things we've done in Garland, and this is not high tech, this is very low tech, right? And this is actually parent leadership. But the welcoming walkthrough was an idea I got from Beyond the Bake Sale, but the checklist that I actually got from I believe it's the Indiana Parent Information Resource Center, back when those existed. And at the time, there were 4 areas. So we invited parents into the school. 4 or 5 parents would partner with one teacher to look at one of these checklists. So we had different groups, and we had anywhere from 16 to 25 parents, depending on the size of the campus. But they took a checklist and they went through the physical environment. They observed the interpersonal interactions. So they were there maybe an hour watching people come into the front office, watching passing periods and how teachers and students interacted, how visitors were greeted as they walked through the building. They looked at the written materials and communication. So much has gone online, that's a little bit harder now, right? There's not a Tuesday folder at some schools anymore. Policies and practices. Parents got to interview the administrators and talk about policies and practices. Now, recently, because of the lockdown, we added a virtual, and I see the question, are you open building now? That's a good question. We're not doing walkthroughs right now because we're not that open, but as the COVID conditions change, volunteers come in, and then sometimes we're saying, well, not so good right now. So right now, January, things are a little bit slow, but at the end of last semester, we were having more people in the building. And then virtual environment. And we just researched like what's best practices for email, what's best practices for campus newsletters, what's good practice for class blogs and class websites. And so we put together a checklist for campuses that they could kind of evaluate themselves, and teachers could just check their signature. What do I want parents to know? What are the links they need to have access to? Okay, is it in my signature? Making it easier. And yes, we can share checklists if you'll reach out to us, or we'll get with Matthew to make those more accessible. Thanks for the question, Ms. Terry. But I want to point out something that as a dad, I experienced firsthand. Teachers were scrambling at the beginning of the COVID thing to give websites and resources for online learning. And I had a first grader that was going to websites 4/5 of the page was ads, and 20% of the page was math. And the biggest button on the screen said, click here. And it was to download a program. So teachers were sending my kids to websites, and my kids were downloading stuff to the computer, right? No idea. I had to do the virus cleaner and all that again. But we send them to websites that are collecting data about us, about them, right? That are not friendly. And so student privacy protection is a big deal. Common Sense Education, Common Sense Media has great resources to teach digital literacy, digital citizenship, and to talk about student privacy protection so that teachers can get the training and they can talk about it with kids. And so I want to recommend that website, Common Sense Media, Common Sense Education. And then also teachers were maybe sharing things, or the district was sharing things that were not mobile friendly. And so many of our families actually access through a tablet or a phone. And we have resources that might be tablet friendly, but they're not phone friendly. So thinking about what we share and what we ask parents to do and making sure that it's highly accessible to everybody. So this is from the Flamboyant Foundation, and they look, their lens is the 5 essential roles. So this year, our focus really has been on support learning at home, to guide education, and to advocate for their child. And again, everything is through the lens of dual capacity building. So we're talking about family engagement, who we do or have done a lot of staff development. And our community liaisons, they work a great deal with the administrators. And I told one the other day, you think you're handling a complaint, but you're actually coaching this parent on how to advocate for their child, right? And you're coaching the administrator how to communicate and work with this family. So a lot of the work we do is always coming from both ends of the spectrum, right? The family and the school. Now, some of you are probably saying, but when are we getting to the resources? Dr. Aguilar, I'm going to hand this over to you and talk about Facebook Live.
Yes, so I see we're really preaching to the choir today, because I was reading the chat while Jonathan was talking, and someone put on there, families are fundamental to student success. That's part of their why. Someone talked about trust, which Jonathan and I talk a lot about trust when we're working on family engagement work. And then essentially it's about building relationships. So we know, as someone also commented, it's really difficult right now. In the world that we're living in, it's very, very difficult to be a parent. And when we were first faced with the pandemic and the shutdown, we thought, how are we going to reach our families? It's really, really imperative that we reach our families right now, but we can't do anything in person. And so my team had a big brainstorming, and we just kind of were like, what could we leverage? What could we use? We already had a Facebook account, and we're not using it that much, but we're posting things, especially specific to like parent training for specific things like Skylar or Skyward. But we decided, you know what, and I have to give all credit to Lakeisha Culpepper, one of my community liaisons, because she had experience with Facebook Live. And so she was like, we could do a Facebook Live. We'll record the videos, and then we will upload them to Facebook, and then we'll all be on Facebook ready to chat with our families. So at the start of this, we were doing it twice a week during the initial shutdown. And now this year, we've changed it a little bit. We're going to talk about how we changed it. We're actually doing Facebook Live via Zoom. So it's a Zoom call, just like the one that we're on right now. But we're actually streaming it to Facebook. And so that way we can have more of a panel type presentation and include more than one topic. And we've also found that it's a bit more engaging for the audience to watch multiple speakers talk about the different initiatives that are going on in the district. And we get a little bit more questions, a little bit more interaction and chat with the audience. So, but we also this year, because some of you also mentioned, we wanted to target how can parents support learning at home, and how can they really guide their child's education. So we did some topics that center on those areas as well. Next slide, Jonathan. So before I get started, I kind of want to know where you guys are at in terms of using Facebook Live or any other medium to kind of get the word out and to do like a parent university / info session for families. And have you had any obstacles or celebrations? Please put them in the comments. I see Google Meet has been used for parent meetings. A lot of people are using Google Meet, Zoom. Okay. Teams meeting. We have access to all of those kind of through Zoom, mostly Meets and Zoom. And then you put the recordings on the YouTube page. We do that as well. Okay, Facebook Live, celebration events, music programs. We've done a lot of that as well. Some parents don't follow social media pages. Okay. All right, so thank you for sharing. Continue to put your comments in the chat. If I'm not able to answer it out loud, Jonathan will be chatting with you guys. But let's go to the next slide. So first, let's talk about getting started. Like I said, we had already created our Facebook accounts for the district. So we were able to just start leveraging them and using Facebook Live. But if you have not already created a district Facebook account, I just recommend that you do that. It's good practice. I also, and all of my staff members, set up a district like professional Facebook page. So one that is not your personal Facebook page. And what you need to do is just use the district email and logo to make sure that you're branding that Facebook account as your professional Facebook account. And then of course, you make your friend requests to family and community leaders that you know that are in your district. And most importantly, try to join any community Facebook groups that are available within your community that your parents access. So once you have your professional, Facebook page, then you can set up a district Facebook page. So that's an actual page where you can invite attendees to like your page. But most importantly, once you create that Facebook page, prepare to engage. We didn't realize that our parents use Facebook as much as they do. We will get questions in our inbox, even when we're not on our Facebook Live. So instead of emailing us, they will inbox us. They'll send us messages through Facebook, through the Facebook page. And it's also very important as you embark on a district supported Facebook account or any other account that you might have social media wise, is to adhere to any district social media guidelines that you guys might have. And just make sure that it's branded and that they know that that is your professional account. Here's a look behind the curtains of our workflow for our parent university. So we used to have this set up, a workflow for our in-person events. I just modified it for our Facebook Lives. So the first thing we have to do is really discuss the topic and ideas. We talk to other departments, we talk to families, we talk to each other, kind of what's going on in the district, and determine what topic would be good during what month. And we have a spreadsheet that kind of keeps that all together as we plan and move forward. We also make sure to get that topic approved. So that way we are making sure that we're communicating with families, things that's important that the district needs to distribute. Then we decide, okay, who's going to be on the Facebook Live panel? Because it's not necessarily just my staff or my team. We have guests from all departments, from different campuses, and also community members and community organizations and food pantries that have been on our panels. So we determine who that's going to be. We send out an invitation asking them to join us. We try to give them plenty of time to plan. I try to send that out at least a month in advance. And then we assign roles. So who is going to be the person that's going to actually be in control of the Zoom room and stream it? that person is not necessarily on camera, and they're not necessarily participating in the chat, but it's a very, very vital role because they are the ones that are actually hitting the button that beams and streams out to Facebook Live, and then they're the one that hits ends and ends the meeting on Facebook Live. Then you have the host. Jonathan, if you watch any of the ones that are online, Jonathan is an amazing host, I have to tell you, because he's a great listener. And so he helps the conversation just flow and gets everyone to really center on what's important, what are our families, what are the big takeaways that our families need to know. And then we assign chat monitors. So at least 2 to 3 other staff members are not on the Zoom call, but they're actually watching the Facebook Live and they're chatting within Facebook to answer any questions, put any website links that the audience might need to have as they're engaging in the video. So in order to make all of those different roles and things happen, I create a script. So it's just a very, very easy script. It's what are the questions that are going to be asked, who's going to answer first, second, third, those kinds of things. That way nobody opens their mic at the same time, kind of to prevent some of the awkwardness. But we send that Facebook Live script out to the people that are actually going to be on the panel, so that way they see in advance and they can prepare. Jonathan sends out the information to communications on what our topic's going to be, and we begin to really promote the event. We make sure that it's posted everywhere that we can. Our website, a Skylar email goes out to our families. It's on the website calendar very prominently for one of our parent workshops. It's posted in the WAPE, which is an internal Garland ISD thing, which is a weekly administrative information packet, because it's really important for our campus administrators and leaders to be aware of our parent university, so that way they can let our families know about it. So a lot of our administrators will put that information in their newsletter or any other forms of communications that they use to outreach to their families. I also include it in our s'more. We've created a s'more to advertise it to family, but also community groups. We'll talk about the s'more later. Jonathan then does his amazing job of promoting it on social media in advance, so that way they know what time to tune in and when, and what the topic's going to be. And all staff members engage in the event that night. Again, some of them are on the Zoom call and some of them are monitoring on Facebook. After the event, we make sure to have the video posted with subtitles in Spanish and Vietnamese. Those are 3 languages that we try to always put everything out is in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. We share the link on Twitter, put it out to our YouTube, and we monitor the comments and the data just to determine if the topic was relevant, because some of our topics we've repeated several times. So that's just a general high-level view of the workflow. If you go to the next page, please, Jonathan. Now, some of you might be saying, well, I've been in a Zoom call, I'm on one right now, but I've never really streamed to Facebook Live. So how does that work, and what training did you receive to be able to do that? Well, like I said at the beginning, none of us necessarily have a communications background. We did not receive any training in this area, but we Googled it, right? And so if you Google how to host or stream live to Facebook on Zoom, you'll get these help desk instructions. There's a link right there it takes you to. But then if you're a YouTube video watcher and you learn how to do everything on YouTube, like all of our kids do, I also found a video that you can watch. It's a how-to video of how, and that's very helpful because it shows you the screen and exactly what each of the buttons look like. So someone has to be the Zoom room host. Again, that person is in the Zoom room and their job is just to hit the right buttons to stream it to Facebook Live at the correct time. And then once the discussion is over, for them to hit end streaming to Facebook Live. So that way it is over and it's not streaming to Facebook Live anymore. That's the first role. The second role is the host or the moderator. They have the script in hand. They're ready to ask the questions, and they're ready to guide the discussion and pull out the key big talking points that families really need to be aware of. Then we have our panel member guests. Most of them are outside of our department. And we have our chat monitors who are not in the Zoom room, but they're actually looking at the Facebook Live, so they can tell us, they text us on our phone like, yes, we can see it, it is streaming, those kinds of things. So they kind of verify that, but then they're able to chat in the Facebook discussion as well. We have everyone log into the Zoom room at least 30 minutes before the event. That's just so that way you can check cameras, microphones, lightings, backgrounds, those kinds of things. We invite our participants, our panel members, to join us via Zoom wherever they're at. We actually had a principal who is in the middle of watching a baseball game, and we said, no, share that, because the other reminder is that we really want our panel members to be relatable. You know, use real life examples, share and try to create that relationship virtually. We also remind our participants to mute their microphones when they're not speaking, and restate like who's going to speak first, second, third, so that way you're not speaking over each other. And my most important one is we always take a 10-minute break before you go live, so that way everybody makes sure that they have their water or their coffee or whatever they need right next to them before you get started. And make sure that they know that you're in a Zoom room and you're live on Facebook when you see the little icon that says live on Facebook on your Zoom screen, and that the discussion needs to continue and flow until the Zoom room host, that's not the discussion host, but the Zoom room person says, okay, guys, I hit the button, we're not on Facebook Live anymore. So that is kind of the roles and the process of doing a Facebook Live via Zoom. If you go to the next, thank you. So here's just a really high level of what goes in the script. A general welcome and introduction of the host, the panel members, and restating what the topic is. We invite the audience to chat. We invite them to say, hey, tell us your name and the campus that you're at, or your role that you serve in the district, or are you a parent or grandparent, etc. We also ask them to ask questions or even to share ideas, because we know that parents really learn best from each other. And so we welcome them to share their ideas as well. It also has the panel questions. They are prepared questions, like I talked about, related to the topic. But also let them know that we will be taking questions from the chat. So I state that in there. After we go through all of our prepared questions, then we'll take a couple of questions from the chat. And then we have a final summary question. This is a great question we ask almost at every one. And it's just, what have we not discussed that you feel is really important for families to know? Because as the panel has their discussion and they're bouncing off ideas from each other, sometimes it brings up just that sentinel piece that parents really need to be aware of. And we like to close with that. And then our host would just do a closing statement, thank them for joining us, giving them information of where to ask questions if they have any questions. So here are topics, and this presentation, when you receive it, it has actual links to go directly to that Facebook Live video, and you can watch it. And then we just had one the other night, so I missed the game, the Texas Tech game. I actually wasn't on the Facebook University though. I had another meeting at the time with Council of PTAs, but you can see Jonathan in action at this next one, and I'll link it before we send it out. But it was just a great discussion. This little at the bottom is actually a Canva image. We use Canva quite a bit to create the images that we post on social media just to advertise our events. If you don't have Facebook, which is a great question, and that's on our website to all of our parents and also on the SMORE and everything that we communicate, That will also be on our YouTube channel. So we give them the direct link to the YouTube channel. And we also post it on our Twitter feed. So let's say that you're on Twitter, you're not on Facebook. You can go to our website and see it. You can go to our YouTube channel and see it, etc. We are not on Instagram or TikTok yet. I saw somebody on there. I don't even have a personal TikTok yet, but we'll see if we can expand. Every year we evaluate and we look at, what are things that we need to add to our repertoire? How can we really improve this and make things better and get an outreach? Jonathan, did you want to say something?
So if anyone is currently using TikTok and Instagram to connect with families and you're finding that engaging, please put it in the chat. Let us know who you are, because we want to learn from you.
Yes. And then tell me how I know how to get TikTok, but how do I find you on TikTok? So that way I'll actually have a reason to join the TikTok universe. Okay, so going on to our Facebook groups, we really found that groups were really important in finding parents and community members to like our page. So at the very beginning, we didn't have that many likes to our page. And I was like, okay, I'm going to join all these community Facebook groups. We have one for Rowlett, it's like Rowlett, Saxe, and Garland all have different Facebook groups. There's probably about 3 or 4. So if you just do a search for Facebook groups and type in your community's name or your neighborhood's name, a lot of those Facebook groups will come up. And then you click join. And so then when you click join, sometimes it'll say do you live in the area, or are you a parent, those kinds of things. And you just answer the question, and whoever moderates that page will give you access to that Facebook group. So we post directly into our Facebook groups when we're having our Facebook lives, to like our page, just in different district events, etc. So that's how we leverage our Facebook groups really to gain more of an audience.
And so I watch the comments in Facebook, and the families that comment on our videos or on our post, I make sure that I invite everyone who hasn't joined us yet. Right. So I monitor that because I want to keep growing our audience, and they'll get our future post.
Yes. Which is really, really important, because once they've attended something, we want them to continue to like and share and view all of the things that we're sharing on Facebook Live. I did do some research. The reason why I created this slide is because I know that the previous expo, there were lots of questions about Facebook groups. And so I just did some quick research on who has Facebook groups out there, what Facebook groups can I join. Texas PTAs has an idea share group. NASCI, the national organization, has family, school, and community engagement group. That's for members only. But if you are a member of NASCI, that might be something that you check out. Common Sense Educators has a Facebook group. So again, if you subscribe to these different groups, you'll have access to different things and just a community that's rallying around that topic. Parenting Today from Child Development Institute, we use a lot of their information. They have a Facebook group. The Search Institute has one. And another thing that I like to do is also this is not necessarily a group, but local agencies and partners all have Facebook pages. So make sure you're liking and following their page as well, because we found a lot of leverage in that. And so far as our Council of PTA will now post all of our events. They'll like and they'll share it. And so that way, maybe that person wasn't following our page, but now that they saw it on the Council of PTA's page, they're more inclined to like and share and watch our events. The same for our local libraries. Again, 3 cities, so there's 3 community library organizations, structures, and so we make sure to follow them and post about their information, and they do the same for us. So that's just a little bit about how we leverage Facebook group to really expand our reach and try to get as many people to be a part of the discussion.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about parent leadership. we know that parents can learn from other parents many times because the parents understand each other better and how they're navigating the system. Their perspective is completely different than the classroom teachers, right? So I will tell you that I became a convert to PTA late in life. I worked with so many families that would tell me about their struggles, right? And then I joined PTA. And I met this amazing group of hardworking, dedicated parents. And I'm like, I hear y'all are kind of a clique. They're like, who said that we want to get them in, right? I'll be like, well, I hear like you're just about fundraising. They're like, oh no, have you come to our literacy night? Currently, our Council of PTAs has, this year they've started a special group for families that have children in the special education program. In the last few years, they've said, you know what? Our demographics have changed, but our leadership isn't changing as fast as our demographics. How do we cultivate new leaders that can be better bridges to all the families? We have PTAs that are all different levels of functioning. So I'm not describing the utopia, the PTA utopia right now. The COVID situation has, in some ways, at some campuses, decimated the PTA membership, and it decimated the PTA leadership. So at some schools, the leaders transitioned up to middle school. And because there is a year and a half without a whole lot of PTA on campus work, we have some schools that are starting over. And so part of building the parent leadership is growing the vision of inclusivity. And I just want to give a shout out to the National PTA. In the last few years, they've really started working on the Center for Family Engagement, transformative family engagement. And they have what they call the 4 I's. And it's really parent-centered programming and a parent-centered approach. They're aware that the changing demographics at some campuses is outpacing the leadership development. And so I know some PTA leaders that have been in some leadership capacity at the campus or at the council for close to 15 years, right? And these are the people that right now have this wealth of knowledge, and they're turning around and training another generation of PTA. So I just saw a mentor, a sister PTA guide. That's one of the things we're working on. So we have a council PTA, and each chairperson hopefully has been able to adopt one of the new PTAs to help just be a point of contact. I don't know all the answers. I mostly do the family engagement chair, sometimes volunteer chair for the council. I've actually never been in a leadership position at a local PTA. So I get questions and I have to go back to someone else and say, like, can you help these people? But I'm the point of contact. But the program that I want to highlight today, we have 13 schools this year that are participating in the National PTA School of Excellence program. This is a great program because it teaches parents kind of the continuous improvement idea for school improvement that is data-driven and it is collaborative. And so I'm going to talk about this, right? But I just want to say the benefit to families and to parent leadership is when we put parents in leadership positions. And so if you have a PTA that has been struggling and it's just teachers keeping it going, and that happens sometimes. Ms. Terry, I'm going to answer that in a second. If you have PTAs that are struggling, right, there's a culture issue. And so we work on welcoming, right? The welcoming comes before PTA, right? Relationships come before PTA. But PTA can be one of those vehicles for helping develop a welcoming environment and building those relationships to families that maybe traditionally at that campus weren't part of PTA. We have a counselor at Park Crest Elementary. And this is an example. 3 years ago, there were 2 parents. One of them didn't even have kids at the campus anymore, but they were keeping PTA going. And there had been a change of leadership. And in 3 or 4 years, they'd had 3 administrators. And they were dealing with some cultural issues that went back 15 years. And so the new administration and the PTA themselves said, like, we can't keep this going unless we build better relationships. So we just put a push out. We did the School of Excellence. We did welcoming walkthroughs. And there was a push to say, we need you, right? And you don't have to speak English to be on our PTA board. we will get an interpreter and we will do this whole thing in Spanish if we need to, right? And so the two PTA families that had been keeping it going were English only. We had a bilingual PTA by the end of the year, right? And a large part of that was because we asked families to be on the committee for the School of Excellence program. So they were the ones helping push out the survey. PTA gives you a survey. Then you look at the data and you pick an area for improvement. In the program, you tell PTA, well, this is what we're going to work on. So then they move you to the next step, implementation. And at the end of the year, you do another survey and you write up how you did and what you did and some of the benefits or challenges that you faced. PTA doesn't reward School of Excellence designation because you went from 0 to 10 in some category. They reward baby steps. They reward the process. And this is the important thing that I want to talk about here. Parent leadership is not being in charge of fundraising. That's a version of leadership. But the real kind of leadership that has long-term lasting effects for students is when we're making decisions about academics and student well-being together. And the School of Excellence is a great program. I'm going to say training wheels, right? The families don't have to know education jargon. They don't have to know education theory. They don't have to know pedagogy. They don't have to even know the best practices because PTA will give them a list of best practices. They call it their roadmap, but they give them a list of best practices aligned with the different areas that you can choose from. And so generally a campus will pick 1 or 2 strategies. At the end of the year, they can talk about what were the challenges to success or how did we do? And I will just say this, generally what happens is parents feel more connected, even if they didn't see a big jump in test scores, right? Parents feel more connected, even if no one produced a statewide reflections winner. And that's the PTA art contest that they do every year. It's called Reflections. But you can talk about school improvement for academics, for student well-being, COVID recovery right now as an area. If you have never participated in the School of Excellence, you can enroll right now. Enrollment would start in May, and then you would really start serving families in September. But this is a great program to help bring in families to be part of a committee that's looking at real data, family data, and responding and being partners. And I would say in our case, 25% of the committee members were staff and the other 75% were families. So the family voice trumped the staff voice in terms of voting, but they were able to listen to each other. Okay. Another thing we're doing then is PTA basics. Someone talked about funds, right? With new PTA members, all that knowledge, right, of how to handle IRS forms and taxes and fundraising and bank accounts was lost at some campuses. So PTA basics, our council PTA president is doing a monthly meeting right now. It's come as you need to, right? But we are talking about, let's see, let me just make sure I didn't jump anything. I think I talked about co-creators, surveys, roadmap. This is a link that when you get it, you can click on and look at the national standards. And so everything is aligned.
Jonathan,
So-
real quick, I wanted to jump in. Sorry, but there's some questions in the chat about like, can the treasurer be a staff member or does it have to be a parent? Those kinds of things. Make sure that you're adhering to your district policy. Some districts have district policy on that. Garland ISD has policy on that. So just make sure that you are communicating the district policy in that regard. Secondly, PTA is an outside organization, so they have different policies and procedures that they have to adhere to. So here's kind of the Texas PTA structure, if you will. The first thing that they have is they have a council of PTAs. If your district has one, is large enough to have an actual council of PTAs, and they're the governing body. They're the party that we work directly with to get this information out to all of the local PTAs. Okay. And they get trained. We actually had, that was the training that I was at on Tuesday for the council board. Texas PTA comes out and trains them. If you don't necessarily have that, everybody has a Texas PTA field service representative. And so you just have to go to their website to find out who your FSR, field service representative, is. And if there were any questions about funds or those types of things or procedures or what are the guidelines, I would check the Texas PTA website, but most importantly, I would reach out to the field service rep to make sure you're adhering to all of their guidelines as well.
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to highlight the other programs because I'm talking about School of Excellence, but the Reflections program, there is a literacy program focused on family literacy, STEAM, digital citizenship, and then positive school climate. And these are programs that are designed to be led by parents for other parents, right? Now, I can talk about our families face challenges to volunteering, right? Do I have a child 0 to 3? And you want me to be up here at what time, right? There's nap time and feeding time and all those other challenges. Or we have parents that say, look, I can volunteer, but at 3:30 I'm done because I'm going to go home and start dinner. We have families that say, I'll volunteer if there's a place for my kid to be, right? Because I have childcare needs. We have some families that have knowledge, but they don't have the confidence, right? So baby steps, well, could you serve popcorn, right? Or can you be on a committee and just give us your opinion? And so the time commitment for being on a committee like School of Excellence is pretty low. And if they don't have 0 to 3 and their kids are on campus, a lot of our families are stay-at-home moms, right? But we have dads also. And this year we have a dad at a middle school that said, you know what? I'm just going to give 1 day a week. And that was a Shrady Middle School. I'm going to give 1 day a week. But the trick here that I want to highlight isn't that he gave 1 day a week. It's that he invited other dads that he knew to be a part of volunteering. And so that one parent actually brought in more hands to help lift the load, right? And he had a link and a connection to families that the school administrator and the teachers did not have. So getting to know our families, I know moms and dads that have computer science degrees, right? But they're from another country. And when they came here, that's not the kind of job that they found. And so, hey, but would you be willing to help other families so we can train them in how to use Canvas or Google Meets? So finding the families that are willing, but they're unsure is really powerful because that relationship encourages them for their own professional, personal growth. And then that idea of, just like we said, we like to give back, we like to help families. We have families that like to help families. And so again, I'm going to use the R word. It starts with building those relationships. And then the C word is communication, right? I have friends, and we mostly just talk about the weather, but we call each other friends, right? Social. And then I have friends that we talk about, raising kids and what are we doing this weekend and the challenges of bedtime routines. We have families that know all those details about other families, right? And so we have families that greet us at the door and they say hi and good morning, and then they go back to their car. But we have families that actually know the details of their neighbors' lives. And when you find those and you can leverage those relationships, you're working on your campus culture at a whole nother level. So you might have someone that says, I don't know if I can lead a workshop. Baby steps, I'll lead it with you, right? Or let's get a team together. I'm going to give a shout out to the 13 schools. A lot of schools, because of the way PTA, National PTA does their system, you enroll and then you do the survey and you apply to be in the program with your survey data. And then you do another application at the end of the year before you ever earn the designation. And they award the designation in August of the following year. Nationally, if I look at all the reports, a lot of people think it's a great idea and they enroll. Some of them never do the survey and they never fill out the first application. So then they're, it's a funnel, right? And so it's brought at the top of people that say, hey, that's a good idea. And then it narrows down to the people that really do the work. So this is why committee is important. Get a group of people to help lift the load. Get a group of people that will commit before you enroll, right? And get a group of people that can help push the work forward and be the communication piece. So yes, it'll be in your campus newsletter, but it's great when one parent's telling another one, don't forget to fill out the survey. We really need to hear from you. So these are 13 schools that are sticking with it. I talked about PTA basics. There was a question. So these are some of the topics we've already covered, and elections will be coming up very soon. And we know that some of our schools are due to review their standing rules and their bylaws. So that training is coming up. And I'll just, again, our PTA council president, I think I'm the only, well, Dr. Aguilar is the liaison for the district. I'm the only staff person on the council. Everyone else is completely parent volunteer. No one gets paid for this. I don't want to be the treasurer, right? I don't want to be responsible for money, but we have families that have high skill levels, right? And so it's just tapping into them. Social media, you know, we've talked about all these different tools. These are the hashtags that we use. I think there's probably a school district down in Central Texas that also uses GISD, and I'm not even thinking Georgetown. Yes, sometimes we pick I've learned to look at the hashtag and search it before we start telling people to use it. You have to be careful what it says, because every time I look at GISD reads, I see the word dread, and I don't want to, I just did something wrong to you. Probably you'll never see it the same again. But we look at our hashtags and look at them again and make sure it's really what you want. But here are all the different things that we're using. So here is my plea for feedback. I use Hootsuite to schedule posts, but I'm using the free version. And if anyone has a social media manager that they really like, Buffer, TweetDeck, Agora Pulse, if you're using something and it's really working for you, I would love for you to drop that in the chat, because I'm doing my research right now. And once you start paying for stuff, then you don't want to switch. So I'd really like to find a good one and commit. So I'll take any feedback, and I see someone else likes Hootsuite. All right. YouTube. All of our Facebook Lives get posted to YouTube later. And then we also have playlists. And when someone says we don't have an enrollment video for online enrollment, then we say, well, make us a video and we'll put it on our playlist. We've actually sometimes used Title I funds to help create videos, because if you haven't heard anything yet, please hear this. It's partnerships. We are not a Title I funded department. At one time, I was Title I funded. I'm no longer Title I funded. And we have some federal funds related to the McKinney-Vento or some of the other grants. But in terms of Title I, there was a question about family liaisons on every campus. We don't have those, and that would help in some ways. What the Title I Federal Programs Department does is they have a campus contact. A lot of times it's the counselor, it could be the AP, or it could be a teacher. And that is the primary person that they communicate with. And they push things out through those people to the families. And I don't know how I just got over to that. Because of not having that liaison, that is really part of our push to close campus, open campus. That was a topic earlier. A lot of our work, I never thought I'd be a social media manager, and I'm learning the tools. But Facebook, we talked about that. Hootsuite, I use that to manage. I looked at Agora Pulse because I thought it might give me better statistics, but the free version doesn't necessarily give me better statistics. It lets me schedule more tweets. I think it might have let me schedule up to 30, but there were other issues with Agora Pulse, so I'm back to using Hootsuite. Twitter, I try to post something. I created a spreadsheet for me, and I just have every date of the school year going down column A. And then across, I have the different websites that I like to look at to get ideas from. But I try to make our Twitter and our Facebook really be information families can use, not just district announcements. So I use Search Institute, I use National PTA, I love Child Mind Institute for social emotional type issues, learning, health. Okay, so this is a pet peeve, but I don't like it when we say SEL and it's not really about learning. I like to use social emotional health because sometimes it's the parents also. And so we try to find things for resources that families can use to support their children, but also support themselves. So across, I just try to make, like Erickson Early Math or Reading Rockets. Well, that'll be on Friday. We use Mayan digital library. So sometimes we use some of their information. And I try to make sure that families more or less weekly have access to some tips for early literacy, early math. Thursday might be about welcoming environment. Sometimes I'm thinking counselors. And again, the limitation of the free version. I'm sorry, I read a comment there and it shot my wheels off for a second. The liability of the free version of Hootsuite is I can only schedule 5 posts. And an example of my spreadsheet. I will make a screenshot or something and give that to Matthew, and because that's a good idea, but it would take me so long to pull it up right now and you'd see my whole messy desktop. I'm going to pass on that for the moment, but I will share a screenshot with Matthew and he can incorporate it, I hope. But it literally, at like the top of column B, I put social emotional. At the top of column C, it says early, because I don't forget what week or what day it is. And then I just post something for every day of the week. And yesterday, Hootsuite caught me. I didn't go in and check it, make sure that it was scheduled, and no tweet went out yesterday. And Ramona probably is going to have a word with me later. She'll tell me, don't say that out loud. But the truth is, I bet none of you are full-time social media managers, and we're all doing the best we can. And so I will share my spreadsheet with you so that you can just see how I just kind of keep myself on track, because I scheduled like 2 months out in advance. And then I go back in the week preceding my post and I kind of look at my first draft and I want to tighten that up. I want to get rid of a sentence. I want to make it easier to read. And then I schedule it.
So I want to give an example of the one that you posted today. It says, ask your child who their favorite teacher is and why, then tell that teacher, thank you. Thank them for being a positive role model. Thank them for encouraging your child. Hashtag welcoming, hashtag relationships. So it's really about just a general outreach to our families. Some of them it is related to like events or news or, things to do, those kinds of things. But others is just, general tips and motivation for our families because we're all, again, we feel so overwhelmed. And sometimes just having that person to talk virtually and send those reminders to each other is important. So what he puts on Twitter, he also posts on Facebook. We have Google Sites up there. We leverage Google Sites not just to try to get our community involved, which we'll talk about in the next slide, but also for staff and to we created a Google site, Support for All, just to give information to our staff, to our administrators about how they can communicate with families and create a welcoming environment. I love, Angela, that you are having a Mardi Gras block party and are going to focus on stress management. That sounds like so much fun.
And the stress class that someone posted about, amen, right? Someone else said amen also. Our families are dealing with high levels of stress, right? The anxiety. Yeah. And so not just how to support yourself, but how to support your child, how to make things feel more normal. Right. My daughter told me she wants to punch COVID in the mouth. I'm like, don't get that close to COVID, please. Right. Like just kids are feeling stress. My daughter told me last year she got to use the playground twice. Right. I don't know if that's true data or just her perception, but it's real.
It is real. And Monica Diaz posted that they use TikTok for mental health videos. And so, Monica, I need to know, because I'm not versed in TikTok, but like, how can I find that? Like, is there like a certain like name that I need to search? So type it in the chat, but we'll go to the next one. I'm sorry, Jonathan,
No, that's fine. It's all good. The problem is there's more ideas out there than we really have time to cover.
There are, and it's exciting.
I'll tell you one of my challenges. Before the pandemic, I thought we were going to have community readers volunteer and adopt a classroom or adopt a student to read to, and then this, right? So we said, well, will you read a book online? Well, in the beginning, that was a great idea, and then people took away their copyright or permissions. After a few months, publishers were like, yeah, we're not going to let you post those anymore. So then we said, well, we'll just make a video trailer. Will you read one of our digital books? Read a library book that's in our digital library also, and kind of introduce it. But a lot of the people that said yes, when I said make a video of yourself, like, oh no, we don't want to do that. So connecting, I saw someone say our families don't want to engage. So I think one of my comments earlier was find out what they're using. I've seen WhatsApp. We have a counselor that before anyone was on Twitter, before any of her families were on Twitter, she said, let's use WhatsApp. That's what y'all are using. That's what you're telling me. So she learned how to use WhatsApp, which isn't hard, right? It's texting. But she made a group for the families. Those families that she had a relationship with, those were the first families that were willing to be part of the School of Excellence Committee and the welcoming walkthroughs. And so it started with relationships, but she met them where they're at on the Facebook or the WhatsApp or whatever they're using. The newsletter, we use some more. Ramona, there was a question, is that a paid version of some more?
Yes, we do have a paid version of S'more, and we added that to our repertoire. It's been about a year since we've had a S'more out every month. And we have the Facebook Live, and we use this more really to advertise and to get the word out about our Facebook Live, but also about everything else that's on the district website. Because a lot of our family and community members were saying, oh, I didn't know about that, or I hadn't heard that, or where's that update, especially about the health protocols and things like that. So what I do is I look at the website and I just make all of the information a little bit more palatable for our families and for our community members in the S'more. And it's put on social media, but we also have a giant email list that Jonathan and my team helped put together with all of those that are listed there.
All right. Am I still showing the slide deck? I can't see what I'm showing.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
I think the next one is we're asking them questions about sharing, which they've done a great job of sharing with us.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try to share my spreadsheet because it's so simple, like, but just to see. So here's all the days of the year. Are you seeing my Twitter schedule now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So I put some of the key people or key websites that I look for, key topics. I love Search Institute because they talk about developmental relationships now. I don't know when they started, but I was always familiar with their developmental assets. And when I went back to the well, I found out, oh my gosh, look, now they're talking about relationships and relationships that help children develop healthy, in healthy ways. But PTA, roadmap, welcoming schools. So that column E, I think, is Wednesday, right? And then I don't know if you can see, I've got stuff covering up. Column H, when I know that there's something that the district is pushing and I need to schedule something for that day, I put that in column H. But let's see, we'll scroll down to what's coming up. So next week, I'm going to be asking parents to challenge their kids, ask hard questions, but don't criticize the ideas, right? But show that you're open to different opinions. Sometimes I wish my daughter would hold her opinion just for a moment till I get mine out, right? But I've practiced this so long, she kind of knows that she gets a turn and she just likes to go first. Child Mind has an article about transitions, and we know that we're dealing with that. There's a lot of grief in our community. I don't need to say more about that, but we're dealing with everything. I'm asking parents about volunteering, right? And there's the link to the volunteer application. Talking about listening to your kids. I listened to my daughter talk the other day. She told me a new name. She used the word Camorra, and my ears perked up. I'm like, oh, that's one of, they're not one of your usual friends that you play with, are they? She's like, no, we just started talking. I'm like, okay, right? So, cheers for Camorra, right? But I have to listen to my daughters. They're 7 and 9. If I don't listen, if they think I'm on the phone too much, they will let me know. Then connecting with the teacher. So on Friday of next week, I hope that's next week, it's going to be about just connecting with your teacher. Now, none of these are scheduled right now. Today and tomorrow, I have to go through, I'm going to check all my spelling, check, I might be using 260 characters. Can I make it 240? Can I make it easier to read? And that's my spreadsheet. So while Ramona was talking, I jumped over.
No, thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. And the last question we have is just to share your district family efficacy development strategies in the chat. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll address them. But stay tuned. I mean, we talked a lot about our virtual outreach. Maybe one of the questions you have is, do you have any in-person events? We're going to have our second annual family engagement conference. And that is going to be an in-person event in July. And so it's just a back to school, get everyone on board. It's actually a whole committee district wide to develop what workshops need to be presented and the information that we're going to provide to families. We also have a community fair there. So we ask community organizations and resource and agencies to just have a booth there with information for our families. So those are the things that we are working on. So if you have any questions, please also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and like us on Facebook.
And our last question there was, what are some of the things you're doing? But y'all have been dropping that in the chat the whole time. So thank y'all so much for participating. I hope I'm at the statewide conference in December. I hope I'm presenting. I hope I see y'all there. But Ramona and I, we've always walked away from the conference feeling like the people that came to our sessions brought as many ideas as we shared. And we steal, borrow, share. I know we're all in it together. So thank everyone for being here today and for your great comments and questions.